Hey guys, I'm Jody Hand, Mrs. Hand Painted, and thanks for joining me here on YouTube. This is my second in a series of watercolor postcards. There's 4 total. In this video, we'll be doing this Misty Forest landscape, and I'll show you how you can do some wet and wet background techniques and layering to create this really simple postcard landscape. So grab your paintbrushes, your paint, any color that you want to use. You can mix up any dark green or black or navy blue, any colors you want to do. So make it your own and paint along with me. All right, this next postcard design we're going to do is a little bit of a misty forest. And I'm going to go ahead and tape my paper down with my washi tape again. Give myself a nice border. I made that one a little bit too short. Whoops. All right, so for this one, we're going to do a little bit of a color mixing with my palette here, or you can find a really dark pine green color on your own. I am going to be using my round size 8 for this and my round 1. All right, so I am taking that Prairie Dropseed color and I'm going to mix that with the Reakirt's blue. So that is the Ultramarine and Burnt Sienna mix, and a yellow green that is made from a yellow and cobalt blue. So this way I can get kind of a nice olivey dark green, and it may start separating a bit on your palette, and if that happens, you just kind of mix it back together as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and actually I'll get my wash brush and get some clean water across the entire paper again. I don't quite have all of that gray mixed out of my brush from the last painting, but I'm not worried. So we're gonna go ahead and just do our background first, which is gonna be kind of the misty trees in the background, and then in the foreground, as that dries, we'll paint over top of it with more of our detailed trees. So for this, I'll go ahead and switch back over to my round 8, and I've got my mixture here. You can kind of see some of the colors separating out a little bit. And just kind of mix whatever colors you have together to just kind of get yourself a darker green shade. For this, I'm going to go ahead and just go onto my background here and just make some kind of basic tree shapes that are going to be in the background. And then we'll blend it out here in just a second. I don't want to add too much paint to the back because I want these to be really faint in the background. Just kind of making a line and then some branch shapes that will be in the back. All right, so I'm gonna rinse my brush out and then get a lot of that extra water off your brush and kind of dry it off on your towel. And then we'll go ahead and we'll just rub that gently out so that it takes away any of the paint lines. So we're just having a misty effect. And you will want to work while this is still wet. We don't want to let that dry and then try to go back over it, because then all of that will still be showing and you want it to be blended out. Okay. And we're just going to kind of blend that down into the bottom as well. You don't want to scrub too hard on your paper because it will start to make your paper kind of fall apart and the fibers of your paper will start to pill up. So just try to be very light-handed with it and work while your paper is still quite wet. And I will tell you that using 100% cotton is really essential to doing landscapes like this where you're saturating your paper, because a lot of times the alpha cellulose papers will dry so quickly that you don't have time to work with it while it's still wet. It dries so quickly, and the way that the paint soaks into the paper is so different. Now, while this is still a little wet and my brush doesn't really have any pigment on it, I'm just kind of blending that little bit of the color into the background. And I don't want to overwork that because, like I said, it will start to pill your paper up a little bit. All right, so we're going to go ahead and let that layer dry. That's our background. That's the really misty trees in the back. And then we'll go over top of that with some more detail with a more concentrated paint. So we're going to dry this so that we can do some nice crisp detailed trees in the front. All right, I'm going to switch over to my round size 1 for this next part. You can see my paint's already separating out a little bit, so you can just kind of mix that back together. And we're going to go over this and make some smaller detailed trees over the top. So use a center line as your guide. And then we'll just kind of make some small branches as we go down. You're kind of gonna, what's the best way to say this? Almost have your brush on its side, so you're holding it at an angle like this and just dabbing until you get branch pieces. So I'm just kind of dabbing down, and then you can have your branches going in different directions. You can have some gaps in it, and then you'll just want to get wider and wider out from your trunk of your tree as you go down. And if you wanted to add another layer of misty trees behind this layer, you could always do a second layer too. But just because this is so small, I decided to just do 1 layer of misty trees and then just have my, my trees just 1 layer over top. And then I'll just kind of go off into the bottom. Okay, so there's 1, and we can kind of overlap these and have a few that kind of blend together in different heights. I'm just dabbing my brush here. And we're just using that center line as a guide. If you don't want to have that trunk in there and just do the branches down, you can do that as well. And if you want to add a little bit more of the yellow or green to your mix, so you have a little bit different shades, that's fine too. If you want to vary up the shade of your green or make them more black, you can really adjust the color of your trees so that they don't all blend together. Because my paint is kind of separating out on my palette here, it's kind of giving me the variations without having to create them. I'm just going to work my way across the bottom and make a whole row of trees here. And just varying up the height as well, just to add a little bit of interest. You don't want to have all your trees the same height across. You want to have some that are shorter and some that are taller. Again, I'm just dabbing my brush down to make little branches. And if you wanted to use a little bit bigger brush too, you could use a 4 or 2 to make your trees bigger. I just wanted to do some nice little ones here along the bottom. Now this one you can do like we talked about in the end of the last little landscape. That was the monochromatic one. I did talk about how you could do a whole line of them and just do them one step at a time and do all of the first step together. You could do the same with this as well and make a bunch. Just that the trees will take you a little bit longer than just doing a solid block of color. But if you're wanting to make a whole series of postcards or note cards, this would be another one that you could replicate very easily. I think I'll make a much taller one over here. Another alternative that you could do is use a dagger brush. If you've taken any of my other classes where I did landscapes, I like to use a dagger brush to do pine trees, just because you can get a little bit different of shape on your branches. I really like dagger brushes, but I just wanted to stick with round brushes for this class and just get a little bit different effect. Just remember to keep loading your brush up with paint as you go down, because a smaller brush like this does not hold as much water, especially when you're doing a bigger tree. You might have to reload your brush several times. All right, and I'll do one last one, just kind of coming off here off the edge. All right, and we'll let that dry and then we can peel our tape off. All right, and we'll peel our tape off. Remember to go out at an angle so that it doesn't tear your paper, and just try to go nice and slow. That's why I like using washi tape in particular, just because it's such a low tack, and well, here it is pulling up on the board, but it doesn't stick as badly to your watercolor paper. I think this little chipboard piece, the paper on it's really cheap. Here we go. And one last piece. Perfect. That one is really pretty. This would make a nice masculine birthday card as well, or a Father's Day card. I really like doing kind of woodsy, woodland themed cards for men.